Good morning, everybody. I hope you're having a good Sunday, wherever you might be. We're going to have a relaxing day today. I'm going to have a Jimmy Jammy day. It's hard to get out of this because these are my pyjamas. I would feel a little silly doing a podcast in my pyjamas, but one day, probably. So today's subject is going to be about guilt. As many of you know who follow me, I lost my brother last June. And when Mike died, we weren't speaking. We'd spent much of our adult life not speaking, kind of a tumultuous relationship. Both really as bad as each other, stubborn. I'm sure many of you will know how this feels. However, when he died, I was left feeling the worst kind of guilt in the world. To a degree I still do, but I've had to deal with it in my own head. I've come to terms with the fact that it really wasn't my fault. I really tried. And you can't make someone love you. You can't make someone want to speak to you. You can't make the perfect brother. If we could, I would have. But in his own way, he was perfection to me. The amount of times when I've done readings and been at shows and spoken to people and they've expressed how guilty they feel about something. Maybe their guilt is the fact that they couldn't be with their loved one when they died. They tried so hard to get there. Maybe like me, it was that their mum wasn't speaking or their dad wasn't speaking or they'd done something or said something that they felt they shouldn't have. We've all been there, but carrying a heavy burden with you the rest of your life is not what is needed. I took the 3 weeks after Mike died and I guilted myself to death. I was an absolute mess. Then it was like an epiphany moment and I realised, you know what? I can't turn back time. I can't redo all the yesterdays. I can only look forward. I once got told a story about a monk. I'm sure it was a Zen monk. And this particular brotherhood of monks were not allowed to go near women. They weren't allowed to touch women or converse with women or even be in their company. And these two monks were out for a walk and they came across a river. They needed to get across the river to get on with their journey and reach the nearest town, and the river was very swollen and it was very fast flowing. They were young monks, they could travel the river and get across to the other side very well. One monk started to cross the river and he reached the other side, yet the other monk stopped and noticed an elderly lady who would have drowned had she gone in the river, but she too needed to cross the other side. He picked her up, he put her on her back and he made the journey across the river. Once across the other side, he put her down and she went on her way. The first monk was horrified that he'd done this. "Brother," he said, "you've broken your vow, you've touched a woman, you've carried a woman, you've talked to a woman." And the monk who carried the woman just looked at him and said, "What woman? I see no woman. I had no woman upon my back. It was you who carried the burden of the woman on your back, not I." And he walked on. That stuck with me for years and years and years, that sometimes we carry things on our back that are no longer there. Maybe we need to leave them by the riverside and carry on with our lives knowing that we tried. We're actually pretty damned okay. I have another little saying. This arm here, all of you need to check to make sure it still works. Just put it over the top of your shoulder. Make sure you can feel your back. And while you're there, pat yourself on the back for all the good that you've done. Stop dwelling on the bad. Stop dwelling on the past. Cross over the river and go on your journey.